Most biographies of famous people are full of childhood stories. If someone becomes a king, a prophet, a revolutionary, or a saint, later generations usually search for the first sign. They look for the strange sentence the child said at dinner, the moment the parents realized something was different, the early talent, the early rebellion, the little scene that seems to explain the whole future. But the most famous life in history has a strange silence in the middle of it. The Gospels give us the birth of Jesus. They give us Bethlehem. They give us Mary, Joseph, the manger, the shepherds, the wise men, the danger of Herod, the flight into Egypt, and the return to Nazareth. Then Luke gives us one more scene. Jesus is 12 years old. His family has gone up to Jerusalem for the feast of Passover. When the journey home begins, Mary and Joseph realize he is not with the group. They search for him for 3 days. Finally, they find him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking questions. Everyone is amazed. Mary asks him why he has done this to them. Jesus answers that he must be in his Father's house. And then just when we expect the story to open up, it closes. Jesus goes back down to Nazareth with Mary and Joseph, and he is obedient to them. Then the public story disappears for almost 18 years. When Jesus appears again, he is about 30 years old. He comes to the Jordan. John the Baptist recognizes him. The heavens open, the public ministry begins. That gap has fascinated people for centuries. What happened between 12 and 30? Where was Jesus? What was Mary doing? What happened to Joseph? Were these years ordinary, or were they hiding some lost secret? The secular version of the mystery usually asks, did Jesus travel somewhere? Did he learn from hidden teachers? Did he spend years in Egypt, India, or some unknown school of wisdom? Those theories are popular because silence invites imagination. But the Catholic view begins somewhere different. It does not treat the hidden years as a missing adventure that needs to be replaced. It treats them as a revelation. Because if Christians really believe that Jesus is God made man, then the most shocking thing may not be where he secretly went. The most shocking thing may be that he stayed. Before we enter the mystery, we need to be honest about the evidence. The canonical Gospels do not give us a diary of the Holy Family's daily life. They do not describe Jesus at 13, 14, 18, or 25. They do not give us a chapter about Joseph teaching him a trade. They do not show Mary explaining the Annunciation to a growing son. They do not describe the family table in Nazareth. That silence matters. It means a careful script cannot pretend to know every detail. But silence is not the same as emptiness. The Gospels give us a few firm points. Matthew tells us that after the danger from Herod, Joseph takes the child and his mother and eventually settles in Nazareth. The family does not remain in royal courts or spiritual centers. They settle in a small Galilean town. Luke tells us that the child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom, and that the favor of God was upon him. Then Luke gives the temple scene at age 12. After that, Luke says Jesus went down with Mary and Joseph to Nazareth and was obedient to them. Mary kept all these things in her heart, and Jesus advanced in wisdom and age and favor before God and man. That is the real doorway into the hidden years, not a map to a secret journey, not an encoded clue to a lost school, a sentence about obedience. For a modern viewer, that may sound small, it may sound like the part of the story you skipped to reach the miracles. But in Catholic imagination, that sentence is enormous, because it means the Son of God entered not only human suffering and human death, but human childhood, human learning, human waiting, human family life. He did not arrive on earth as a fully public teacher already standing at a pulpit. He became a baby, he was carried, he was protected, he was taught, he was known by neighbors, he lived under a roof, he lived with a mother and a foster father, and for most of his earthly life, he did not preach to crowds, he lived hidden. The silence of the Gospels is not an accident that Catholic tradition rushes to fill with sensational details. It is a silence Catholics are asked to contemplate. The hidden years are not simply missing information. They are part of the meaning of the Incarnation. The reason this topic pulls so strongly is simple. We do not like gaps. When a story moves from a miraculous birth to a public ministry, our minds want the bridge. We want the training montage. We want the hidden mentor. We want the place where Jesus became ready. That desire is not new. Early Christians were also curious about the childhood of Jesus. Over time, non-canonical stories appeared that tried to imagine what the Gospels left unsaid. Some of these apocryphal infancy stories show a child Jesus performing dramatic miracles, sometimes in strange and unsettling ways. The Church did not receive those stories as part of the canonical Gospels. That is important, because the Catholic instinct is not simply to collect every legend and call it tradition. Catholic tradition is careful about the difference between scripture, doctrine, devotion, and pious imagination. There is room for meditation. There is room for art. There is room for asking what daily life in Nazareth may have looked like. But there is also a boundary. The Gospels do not let us turn the hidden years into a fantasy novel. Modern versions of the lost years mystery often go further. They ask whether Jesus traveled outside Judea and Galilee. Maybe he went east. Maybe he learned from other religions. Maybe the public ministry was the result of a secret international education. For some viewers, those ideas feel fresh because they make Jesus sound less familiar and more mysterious. But from a Catholic angle, they often miss the deeper mystery. They assume that if nothing spectacular was recorded, then something spectacular must be hidden. Catholicism almost reverses that. It says the hiddenness itself is spectacular. The eternal Word of God did not need a secret journey to become interesting. He entered the slowest, quietest, least marketable part of human life, growing up in a family, and he stayed there for years. That is harder to sensationalize. It is also harder to escape, because most people will never have public years that look impressive from the outside. Most people will live many hidden years. Years of chores, meals, family stress, work, waiting, prayer, disappointment, repair, and ordinary love. The hidden years of Jesus tell those people, this part of life is not outside God. God lived there too. The word hidden can make Nazareth sound like a blank space, but Nazareth was not nowhere to the people who lived there. It was a real town with real families, real labor, real social memory, and real daily rhythms. It was small enough to be overlooked by the powerful, but not imaginary. It sat in Galilee, a region where cultures, trade routes, local loyalties, and imperial pressures all crossed in ordinary ways. Jesus grows up not in the temple precincts of Jerusalem, but in this small place. That choice matters. When Nathanael later hears about Jesus of Nazareth, he asks, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" That line captures something. Nazareth did not sound impressive. It did not carry the weight of Rome. It did not carry the sacred prestige of Jerusalem. It was not where someone would naturally look for the center of history. And yet in Catholic thought, that is exactly where the center of history spends most of his human life. This is one of the quiet inversions of Christianity. God does not simply enter the human world at the top. He enters the world through dependency, danger, migration, obscurity, work, family, and village life. The Holy Family is not presented as a royal household with servants and comfort. They are shown offering the sacrifice of the poor at the presentation. They flee violence, they relocate, they return, they settle. Then they become ordinary enough to be known by ordinary labels. When Jesus later teaches, people ask about him in family and trade terms. Is this not the carpenter? Is this not the carpenter's son? Is this not Mary's son? Those questions tell us something about the hidden years. Jesus was not known locally as the mysterious traveler who vanished for decades and returned with secret doctrines. He was known as someone from a family, someone from a trade, someone with neighbors, someone familiar enough that his public wisdom could scandalize people who thought they knew his category. That is one reason the Catholic reading of the hidden years is so different from the conspiracy reading. The conspiracy reading says he must have been somewhere extraordinary. The gospel texture says people thought he was ordinary, and that ordinary life became the place where divine humility was lived. If the hidden years are quiet, Joseph is one of their quietest figures. In the Gospels, Joseph never speaks a recorded line. He receives messages, he obeys, he acts. He takes Mary as his wife, he protects the child, he flees to Egypt. He brings the family back, he settles them in Nazareth, he goes with them to Jerusalem, he searches for Jesus with Mary. Then, after the temple scene, Joseph disappears from the gospel narrative. By the time Jesus begins his public ministry, Joseph is not mentioned as an active presence. At the crucifixion, Jesus entrusts Mary to the beloved disciple, which many Catholics understand as a sign that Joseph had already died. But Scripture does not show us that death. So Joseph's life is hidden almost all the way through. That makes him incredibly important for this episode, because he is not important in the modern sense of having many lines, a dramatic public identity, or a long psychological profile. He is important because he keeps saying yes through action. Catholic tradition calls Joseph the foster father of Jesus and the spouse of Mary. It sees him as the protector of the Holy Family. But his protection is not glamorous. Think about what his hidden years may have required. He had to build a household around a mystery he did not control. He had to work, he had to provide, he had to keep the family rooted after danger and displacement. He had to teach, guide, guard, and then slowly step back. There is something deeply Catholic in that kind of hidden fatherhood. Not every vocation is loud, not every mission is visible. Joseph's holiness is not measured by how much he explains himself. It is measured by fidelity. For a faceless documentary, Joseph is also a powerful visual anchor. Not because we need to invent scenes the Bible never gives us, but because his silence tells a story. A door closing at night, a lamp in a workshop, a hand steadying a young boy's hand over a tool, a road back from Jerusalem, a father searching with fear, a man who protects the mystery and never makes it about himself. If the world remembers loud conquerors, Joseph is the opposite. He is the guardian of God's hidden life. Mary's hidden years are different. She does speak in the Gospels. She says yes at the Annunciation. She visits Elizabeth. She sings the Magnificat. She gives birth. She presents Jesus in the temple. She hears Simeon's prophecy that a sword will pierce her soul. She searches for Jesus when he is lost. But after the temple scene, Luke gives a line that is almost like a window into her interior life. Mary kept all these things in her heart. This is not the image of someone who instantly understands everything with perfect emotional ease. It is the image of a mother who receives mysteries, carries them, remembers them, and contemplates them. That matters because the hidden years were not just hidden from outsiders. In some sense, they were hidden even from Mary. She knows who her son is. She has heard the angel's message. She knows the circumstances of his birth. She knows the prophecy. She knows he belongs in a unique way to the Father, and yet she still experiences the pain of losing him for 3 days. She still asks why. She still has to keep and ponder. This makes Mary intensely human. The Catholic imagination honors her in extraordinary language, but the hidden years keep her from becoming a flat symbol. She is a mother living with a divine mystery under her roof. She has to cook, clean, speak, listen, guide, pray, remember, worry, and wait. In art, Mary is often shown in the great moments: Annunciation, Nativity, Pieta, Assumption. But for the hidden years, the visual language should be smaller. Mary folding cloth, Mary watching the door, Mary at prayer, Mary seeing Joseph teach Jesus a trade, Mary remembering the temple, Mary hearing normal village sounds while carrying a secret no village gossip could understand. This is where the Catholic angle opens a space that secular lost years content often misses. The question is not only what Jesus did, it is what it meant to live beside him while he remained hidden. Mary's hidden life is the life of faith before everything is clear. She does not possess the future. She receives it, she keeps it, she waits with it. And that becomes one of the deepest patterns of Christian life. The strangest line in the hidden years may be the simplest one. Jesus was obedient to them. To modern ears, obedience can sound negative. It can sound like loss of freedom, lack of personality, or blind submission. But in the gospel, this line is not a small domestic note. It is a theological earthquake. Christians believe Jesus is the Son of God, and Luke says he obeyed Mary and Joseph. That means the incarnation is not just God appearing in a human body. It is God entering the real structure of human life. A child is not self-sufficient. A child receives language, food, habits, gestures, prayers, and a place in a family. A child learns how to live in a human world. Catholic teaching does not imagine Jesus as ignorant in a sinful or defective way, but it also does not erase his real human growth. Luke says he advanced in wisdom and age. That phrase protects a mystery. Jesus is not pretending to be human. He truly lives a human life, and that life includes development. This can be hard to hold together. If Jesus is divine, how can he grow? If Jesus is the eternal Son, how can he be obedient as a child? Catholic theology answers by insisting on both truths. He is truly God and truly man, not half and half, not God wearing a costume, not a merely inspired human teacher, truly God, truly man. So the hidden years become the place where that doctrine becomes concrete. It is easy to say true man in a creed. It is more difficult to imagine what that means at breakfast. It means the Word, through whom all things were made, lived under the authority of a mother and a foster father. It means the one who would command storms first accepted the daily limits of a household. It means humility is not a decorative virtue added later. It is woven into the life of Jesus from the beginning. This is a central payoff for the episode. The hidden years are not boring filler before the real mission. They are the mission already taking shape in humility. One of the strongest images of the hidden years is the workshop. The Gospels identify Joseph with a trade, and Jesus is later connected to that same world of manual labor. The word often translated as carpenter can also mean a craftsman or builder, someone who works with materials like wood or stone. We should be careful not to overpaint the details. We do not know the exact daily layout of Joseph's workspace. But we can say that the Holy Family's life was not an abstract spiritual bubble. It included work, real work, physical work, skilled work, the kind of work that leaves dust on hands and soreness in the body. This matters because Christianity does not present salvation as an escape from material life. The Son of God does not only bless prayer, he blesses labor by entering it. In the hidden years, Jesus likely learned the rhythms of human work. Measuring, carrying, repairing, making, waiting for payment, dealing with customers, walking to a job, returning tired. That is not a distraction from holiness. In Catholic thought, it can be holiness. This is why the hidden years speak to people who feel that their lives are repetitive. A parent making breakfast again, a worker doing the same task again, a student studying when no one notices, a caregiver performing quiet service again and again. The hidden years say, do not despise the years that are not public. God entered them. There is also a poetic connection that many Christian meditations have noticed. Before Jesus carried the wood of the cross, he lived in a world of wood, tools, weight, and labor. We should not turn that into a fake historical detail, as if we can prove exactly what he carried on a particular day. But as a meditation, it is powerful. The hands that would later be pierced were hands that knew work. The body offered on Calvary was not untouched by ordinary fatigue. The hidden years make the passion more human, not less divine. They remind us that Jesus' sacrifice was not the first moment he entered humility. It was the culmination of a life that had already chosen humility for decades. Another way to understand the hidden years is to move from the workshop to the table. The Gospels do not show us daily meals in Nazareth, but no human family lives without ordinary meals. Food, conversation, silence, prayer, fatigue, hospitality, and small household tensions all belong to family life. For Catholics, the Holy Family is not sacred because it avoids the ordinary. It is sacred because the ordinary becomes a place of grace. This can be easy to miss. When people hear Holy Family, they may imagine a perfect religious painting where no one is tired, no one spills anything, and no one has to repair the roof. But the holiness of the Holy Family is not plastic perfection. It is fidelity, love, and obedience inside real conditions. They were poor or modest, they had known danger, they had relocated, they lived in a village, they worked, they prayed, and they did this with a mystery at the center. The family table is also important because so much of Jesus' later ministry happens around meals. He eats with tax collectors and sinners, he feeds crowds, he teaches in homes, he gives the Eucharist at a meal. Catholics can see in the hidden years the long preparation of a human heart that knew the meaning of table fellowship from the inside. Again, we do not need to invent a scene and pretend it is gospel. But we can say that Jesus' public actions are not detached from his hidden life. He did not come from nowhere. He came from Mary. He came from Joseph's household. He came from Nazareth. He came from years of ordinary human belonging. That makes the hidden years feel less like a blank chapter and more like a root system. Roots are not visible, but without them, nothing stands. The Holy Family's hidden years were not only work and meals, they were also shaped by prayer. Jesus was born into Israel. Mary and Joseph are shown keeping the law, presenting Jesus in the temple, going up for Passover, and living within the religious life of their people. So when we imagine Nazareth, we should not imagine a modern private spirituality detached from community and calendar. We should imagine a life marked by feast days, Sabbath, scripture, prayer, pilgrimage, and memory. The temple scene itself happens because the family goes up to Jerusalem for Passover. That detail is not background decoration. It shows Mary and Joseph as faithful Jews. It places Jesus within the covenant story of Israel. It means the hidden years were filled with the prayers and hopes of his people. For Catholic viewers, this is important because it keeps Jesus from becoming a vague spiritual symbol. He is not a myth floating above history. He is a Jewish child in a Jewish family. He learns and lives within Israel's worship. He hears the scriptures. He enters the story of Abraham, Moses, David, the prophets, exile, return, hope, and waiting. The hidden years are therefore not empty of religious meaning. They are full of it. But the meaning is not staged like a public miracle. It is repeated like a rhythm. Prayer in the morning, prayer at meals, Sabbath rest, pilgrimage to Jerusalem, the memory of God's promises, the hope of Israel. And inside that rhythm, Jesus grows. Catholic spirituality often cares deeply about repeated time, liturgical seasons, daily prayer, ordinary duties, holy days, fasting, feasting, waiting. The hidden years fit that pattern. They say that God does not only work in dramatic interruptions, he also works through sacred repetition. That is a very different kind of mystery from a secret map. It is the mystery of years that look the same from the outside, but are quietly forming a life. At some point before Jesus' public ministry, Joseph seems to vanish from the narrative. The Gospels do not tell us how. They do not give us a deathbed scene. They do not record Joseph's final words. They do not describe Mary's grief. They do not show Jesus burying the man who protected him. And yet, Catholic devotion has long imagined Joseph as the patron of a holy death, partly because of the beautiful possibility that he died in the presence of Jesus and Mary. We should name that carefully. It is a devotional tradition, not a gospel scene. But it reveals something about how Catholics read silence. They do not always fill silence with conspiracy. Sometimes they fill it with reverent possibility. Joseph's disappearance also changes how we imagine the later hidden years. If Joseph died before the public ministry, then Jesus and Mary would have known loss before the cross. Jesus, true man, would have experienced human grief. Mary, who would one day stand beneath the cross, may already have buried her husband. This gives the hidden years emotional depth. Again, we cannot script it as proven fact. But we can say the gospel silence leaves room for a family life that was not sentimental or untouched by suffering. The Holy Family is not holy because it was sheltered from pain. It is holy because it was faithful within pain. This matters for viewers. Because many people hear religious language about family and assume it describes an impossible ideal. A family with no grief, no fear, no money pressure, no uncertainty, no loss. But the gospel details point elsewhere. The Holy Family knew danger from Herod. They knew displacement. They knew the panic of a missing child. They knew poverty or simplicity. They likely knew bereavement. Their holiness did not erase those things. It passed through them. That is why the hidden years can speak to ordinary families without pretending ordinary family life is easy. The silence is gentle, but it is not shallow. Whenever the Gospels are quiet, imagination rushes in. Some imagination is faithful. It meditates on what is given. It asks, what does obedience mean? What does hiddenness mean? What does work mean? What does Mary's pondering mean? Other imagination is restless. It assumes the given story is not enough. That is how lost years theories often work. They begin with a real gap. Then they add a dramatic claim. Then the dramatic claim becomes the hook. Maybe Jesus studied in a secret school. Maybe the church suppressed the truth. Maybe the ordinary gospel account is just the surface. This style of mystery is powerful because it gives the viewer the feeling of being let in on something, but it can also flatten the actual mystery. If Jesus needed some hidden exotic journey to become compelling, then Nazareth becomes a problem to solve. But in Catholic belief, Nazareth is not a problem. Nazareth is where the mystery chose to live. The lost years theories often want Jesus to become impressive in a way the modern imagination already understands. Travel, hidden knowledge, elite training, secret initiation. The Catholic story makes him impressive in a way that is much more uncomfortable. Humility, obedience, silence, labor, patience, and family life. That is why this episode should not sound like it is afraid of the mystery. It should admit the curiosity. Yes, the gap is real. Yes, the silence is fascinating. Yes, it is natural to ask what happened, but then it should gently turn the viewer. Maybe the deepest answer is not that the Gospels forgot the exciting part. Maybe the deepest answer is that we have forgotten how to see the exciting part. We are trained to notice spectacle. The hidden years train us to notice holiness. When Jesus finally emerges from the hidden years, he does not begin by announcing himself in a palace. He goes to the Jordan, he receives baptism from John, the heavens open, the Spirit descends, the Father's voice is heard. Only then does the public ministry begin. From a storytelling perspective, this is remarkable. For nearly 30 years, the life is hidden. Then suddenly, everything starts moving. Baptism, temptation in the wilderness, calling of disciples, signs, teaching, opposition, healings, parables, crowds, conflict, Jerusalem cross, resurrection. The pace changes, but the hidden years remain behind every public moment. When Jesus teaches about the Father, he does so after living for years in human sonship. When he speaks of daily bread, he has known daily dependence. When he tells people not to be anxious about tomorrow, he has lived in a modest household under imperial occupation and local uncertainty. When he calls the poor blessed, he does not speak as someone unfamiliar with simplicity. When he tells his disciples to take up the cross, he has already lived decades of self-emptying humility. This is why the hidden years are not optional background. They are the quiet foundation. If we skip them entirely, Jesus can start to sound like he simply appears as a public religious figure. But Christianity says he first appears as a child. He has a mother, he has a home, he has neighbors, he has a trade, he has a history. His public ministry is not less divine because it grows out of ordinary human life. It is more astonishing because the one who speaks with divine authority is also the one who knew what it meant to be called home for dinner. That line may sound too simple, but that is the hidden years mystery. The infinite entered the ordinary without destroying it. Catholic spirituality has a long memory for hidden lives. Monks in silence, nuns behind cloister walls, parents caring for children, workers offering daily labor, sick people praying from beds no one sees, old people enduring loneliness with faith, priests serving small parishes, people performing acts of charity that never become stories. This is not separate from the life of Jesus. It flows from it. If Jesus spent most of his earthly life hidden, then hiddenness can be holy. That idea is especially strange in a modern attention economy. Today, what is not posted can feel like it did not happen. What is not measured can feel like it did not matter. What is not public can feel like wasted potential. The hidden years of Nazareth say the opposite. They say a life can be most deeply meaningful before it is visible. They say preparation is not wasted. They say small duties matter. They say love does not need an audience. This is why the Holy Family is not just a Christmas image. They are a theology of ordinary life. Mary, Joseph, and Jesus show a holiness that does not announce itself. It is domestic, faithful, patient, and quiet. That does not mean passive. Joseph acts decisively when danger comes. Mary says yes with courage. Jesus' hidden obedience is not weakness. But their strength is not theatrical, it is stable. This gives the episode a different emotional texture from most Lost Years content. Instead of promising, "We found the secret," it can say, "The secret was hidden in plain sight." Nazareth is not empty. It is full of a kind of holiness modern people have trouble recognizing. At this point, the viewer may ask a practical question. What does any of this have to do with me? That question is exactly why the Catholic angle matters. The hidden years make the Holy Family a mirror for ordinary people, not in every detail. No family is the Holy Family. No parent has Mary's exact vocation. No father has Joseph's exact role. No child is Jesus. But the pattern matters. Most people live hidden lives. They do not get biographies. Their best acts are not recorded. Their private sacrifices are not trending. Their growth is slow, their obedience is unseen, their grief is quiet, their work is repetitive, their love is mixed into ordinary duties. The Holy Family shows that this kind of life is not spiritually second class. Jesus did not merely visit ordinary life for a symbolic moment. He spent decades there. This has a strange power. It means a sink full of dishes can belong to the world Christ entered. It means honest labor can be offered. It means family patience can be sacred. It means children growing slowly are not distractions from holiness. It means hidden seasons of life are not necessarily failures. They may be Nazareth. For Catholics, this is why devotion to the Holy Family is not only about admiring them from a distance. It is about learning how to see one's own house differently. The question is not, how can my life become dramatic enough to matter? The question is, how can my hidden life become faithful? That is much harder and much more useful. The temple scene deserves a closer look because it is the one detailed bridge between childhood and public ministry. Jesus is 12. The family goes to Jerusalem for Passover. After the feast, Mary and Joseph begin the journey home, assuming Jesus is somewhere in the caravan among relatives and acquaintances. After a day, they realize he is missing. They return to Jerusalem. They search. After 3 days, they find him in the temple. For Christians, the phrase 3 days echoes loudly. It is not the resurrection yet. But later, Jesus will be lost to his followers in death and found again on the 3rd day. Mary's pain in the temple scene becomes a kind of foreshadowing. She loses him. She searches. She finds him in the place of his Father. Then he returns to hidden obedience until the appointed time. That last part is crucial. The temple scene could have been the launch. He astonishes the teachers. He speaks of his Father's house. The adults are amazed. If this were a modern superhero story, that would be the origin reveal. The hidden identity would break open. The child would never return to ordinary life. But Jesus goes home. He does not seize the moment. He does not turn amazement into publicity. He returns to Nazareth. That restraint is part of the mystery. Jesus knows his relationship to the Father, yet he accepts the timing of the Father. He is not driven by the need to display himself. He can be hidden because his identity does not depend on being seen. That is one of the most challenging truths in the whole episode. Most of us want recognition before we are ready. Jesus returns to hiddenness after a moment of recognition. The hidden years are not ignorance, they are obedience. The phrase lost years is catchy. It works for titles because it sounds like something has gone missing. But from a Catholic point of view, the phrase is also misleading. The years are lost to us in the sense that we do not have detailed records. They are not lost to God. They are not lost in the life of Jesus. They are not wasted. This distinction matters for the whole episode. A secular mystery often treats missing information as the main problem. Catholic contemplation treats missing information as an invitation. It asks us to stay with what has been revealed, not to escape into what has not. What has been revealed? That Jesus was born into a family, that Mary and Joseph protected him, that they returned to Nazareth, that they practiced their faith, that Jesus grew, that he was found in the temple, that he knew he belonged to the Father, that he went home, that he obeyed, that Mary pondered, that he advanced in wisdom, age, and favor. This is not a lot of information if we are trying to make a documentary full of shocking discoveries. But it is plenty if we are trying to understand Christian holiness. The hidden years say that salvation enters history quietly before it enters history publicly. They say that the great visible mission of Jesus is preceded by a long invisible faithfulness. They say that God is not in a hurry. That may be the most foreign idea of all. God is not in a hurry. For nearly 30 years, the world waits. Rome continues. Jerusalem continues. Ordinary families continue. Sickness, taxes, work, prayers, births, deaths, feasts, and fears continue. And in Nazareth, the Redeemer grows in hiddenness. No public campaign, no miracle tour, no announcement machine, just the slow arrival of the appointed hour. Because this topic is so easy to romanticize, we should also say what the hidden years do not mean. They do not mean public mission is bad. Jesus does eventually preach, heal, confront, call, suffer, die, and rise. Hiddenness is not the whole story. They do not mean passivity is always holy. Joseph acts when action is needed. Mary acts when she visits Elizabeth and when she intercedes at Cana. Jesus acts publicly when the hour comes. They do not mean every silence should be filled with pious imagination. Some things are simply not revealed to us. They do not mean family life is easy. The Holy Family's life includes danger, displacement, anxiety, poverty or simplicity, and likely grief. They do not mean all families match the Holy Family in structure or peace. Many viewers come from wounded families. Some have no stable home. Some have lost parents. Some have painful memories connected to religion or family ideals. A good Catholic episode should not weaponize the Holy Family against those people. It should present them as a source of hope, not a measuring stick used to shame. The hidden years reveal that God entered family life, but also that God entered fragility. Jesus was born in vulnerability, he was carried into exile, he was searched for in fear, he lived in modest conditions. He would later be rejected by many in his own region. So the Holy Family is not a porcelain image of ease. It is a holy life inside the real pressure of the world. That makes it more reachable, not less. For the viewer, the question becomes, where is Nazareth in my life? Where is the hidden place where I am asked to be faithful before anything looks important? From a channel strategy point of view, this topic is valuable because the demand already exists. People are clearly curious about the lost years of Jesus, but much of the content space approaches it from a secular mystery angle. Missing time, hidden travels, forbidden texts, secret wisdom. The Catholic angle is underused because it is harder to package. It does not give the viewer a shocking new map. It gives the viewer a deeper way to read silence, that is white space. The episode can still use the hook of mystery, but it should not become another conspiracy-flavored video. The difference is the promise, not, here is where Jesus really was, but, here is why the missing years may be the most relatable part of his life. That is a strong promise, because it moves from curiosity to personal meaning. It begins with a gap in history. It ends with a changed view of ordinary life. This is also sponsor-friendly. The subject is religious but not graphic, extremist, or scandal-based. It is about history, family, work, meaning, and spiritual imagination. It can fit educational brands, book platforms, language learning, faith-friendly apps, travel history products, and documentary-style sponsors. The visuals can stay calm and premium. Maps of Galilee and Jerusalem, soft reconstructions of Nazareth, hands at work, Mary in contemplation, Joseph in silhouette. A 12-year-old Jesus in the temple, shown reverently and not sensationally. Calendar pages, oil lamps, roads, doorways, tools, table scenes, Sabbath candles, scrolls, and village rooftops. The visual language should avoid making definitive portraits of holy figures too aggressively. It can use painterly distance, silhouettes, symbolic framing, hands, backs, soft profiles, and environmental storytelling. That keeps the episode reverent, distinct, and safe. So what happened during the hidden years of the Holy Family? The honest answer is Scripture does not tell us in detail, but it tells us enough to overturn the way we ask the question. Jesus was not missing, he was hidden. He was not absent from his mission. He was living the part of the mission that looks least impressive to the world. He was growing, he was obeying, he was praying, he was working, he was living under the care of Mary and Joseph. He was sanctifying family life from the inside. He was making ordinary time part of redemption. And Mary and Joseph were not side characters waiting for the real story to begin. They were the guardians of the hidden life of God. Mary kept the mystery in her heart. Joseph protected it with his labor and silence. Together they made a home where the Son of God could grow. That is the Catholic answer to the lost years. Not a secret route, not a lost doctrine, not a hidden scandal, a home. The reason that answer can feel disappointing is the same reason it matters. We are trained to think the important years are the visible years, the years when the world notices, the years when the work is public, the years when the story can be measured. But Jesus spent most of his earthly life in years the world did not record. That means hidden years can be holy years, waiting years can be formative years, family years can be sacred years, work years can be redemptive years, silent years can be full of God. The lost years are not lost, they are Nazareth. And Nazareth is the place where God teaches us that ordinary life is not outside the story. It may be where the story is being prepared. There is a reason the phrase hidden life sounds different from the phrase lost years. Lost years makes us feel like someone has taken something from us. It suggests a missing folder, a deleted chapter, a locked archive. It creates suspicion. Who hid the truth? Why was it removed? What would we know if only we could recover it? Hidden life sounds quieter. It suggests something veiled, not destroyed, something real, but not offered for consumption. Something that exists before God even when it is not displayed before us. That difference is the heart of this episode. The Gospels do not satisfy every curiosity. They were not written as modern biographies. They do not record every birthday, every move, every conversation, or every inner feeling. They are theological witnesses to Jesus Christ. So when they pass quickly over most of his life, they are not necessarily telling us those years were unimportant. They are telling us how to look. The life of Jesus is not measured only by public events. For around 30 years, there is almost no public event at all. And yet those years belong completely to his saving life. This matters because many Christians unconsciously imagine Jesus as if he appears mainly during the 3 years of public ministry. The miracles feel like the story. The Sermon on the Mount feels like the story. The cross and resurrection are, of course, the climax of the story. But the incarnation begins earlier. It begins in Mary's womb. It includes birth. It includes infancy. It includes being carried in arms. It includes danger. It includes dependence. It includes language learned in a home. It includes the slow, ordinary development of a human life. If we skip too quickly to the public ministry, we can accidentally make Jesus less human in our imagination. We can believe the doctrine with our lips while picturing something closer to a divine visitor who only briefly touches normal life. The hidden years correct that. They insist that Jesus did not merely appear human, he lived human time. Human time is slow, it is repetitive, it is full of waiting, it includes seasons where nothing appears to be happening, it includes years that no one later writes down. To say that Jesus lived hidden years is to say that he entered that kind of time too. For Mary, this meant motherhood stretched across the ordinary calendar. The Annunciation was a blazing moment. The Nativity was a holy night. The visit of the shepherds, the prophecy of Simeon, the arrival of the wise men, the flight into Egypt, these are luminous scenes. But after luminous scenes come ordinary mornings. The child has to be fed, the household has to be kept, the road has to be walked, the prayers have to be prayed, the questions have to be carried. Mary's greatness is not only that she says yes once, it is that she continues saying yes in the hidden continuation of the first yes. That is a profound image for Catholic life. Many people can recognize a dramatic yes, a wedding vow, a baptism, a conversion, a new vocation, a promise made in crisis. But the hidden years ask about the next morning and the morning after that and the 1,000 ordinary mornings after that. Mary's fiat, her let it be, becomes a life. Joseph's obedience also becomes a life. He does not protect Jesus only in one dramatic flight. He protects him by building a household, by returning to Nazareth, by working, by being present, by being faithful in ways no crowd applauds. That is why Joseph is such a good patron for hidden people. He is not hidden because he failed to matter. He is hidden because his mission was to make room for another. In a culture of self-display, that is almost impossible to understand. Joseph's greatness is not self-expression, it is self-gift. He gives his name, his protection, his labor, his home, his attention, his time. Then he disappears from the record. The disappearance does not erase him. It completes the shape of his vocation. He is the man who guards the mystery and lets the mystery become visible when the time comes. The same pattern appears in Nazareth itself. Nazareth is not an impressive stage. That is precisely why it matters. If the Son of God had spent his hidden years in an obvious center of power, we might understand his life according to the old rules. Greatness comes from status, access, location, education, influence. Instead, he lives in a place people can dismiss. This is not accidental color. It matches the whole movement of the gospel. The lowly are lifted up. The last are first. The poor hear good news. The stone rejected by the builders becomes the cornerstone. The Messiah is recognized not by worldly splendor, but by faith. Nazareth is an early sign of that reversal. The hidden years also help us understand why Jesus' neighbors later struggle with him. When he teaches with authority, they do not simply say, "How wonderful the long-awaited teacher has arrived." They say, in effect, "Isn't this the one we know?" Familiarity becomes a barrier. They know his family category, they know his trade category, they know his place. They cannot easily accept that the extraordinary has been living inside the ordinary. That may be one of the most unsettling lessons of Nazareth. Sometimes we miss God, not because he is too far away, but because he is too near, too ordinary, too familiar, too humble. The people of Nazareth had a category for Jesus. The category was not large enough. A modern viewer can feel the same temptation. We have categories for our own lives: just work, just family, just another week, just another responsibility, just a small town, just a quiet season. The hidden years ask whether that word "just" is blinding us. Maybe the ordinary is not just ordinary. Maybe it is the place where fidelity is being formed. Maybe it is the place where love is becoming real. Maybe it is the place where God is closer than spectacle would allow. This does not mean every ordinary situation is automatically good. Catholic realism does not require pretending pain is beautiful just because it is common. Some homes are wounded, some work is exploitative, some silence is unhealthy. Some hidden suffering needs help, justice, and intervention. The Holy Family should never be used to tell people to endure harm without hope or support, but the hidden years do tell us that ordinariness itself is not a spiritual failure. A life does not have to be dramatic to be meaningful. A vocation does not have to be visible to be real. A season does not have to be understood by others to be known by God. That is the comfort of Nazareth. It is also the challenge, because if hidden life matters, then we cannot wait for a public moment to begin living faithfully. We cannot say, "My real life begins when someone notices me." We cannot say, "My holiness begins when my circumstances become impressive." We cannot say, "This season is too small for God." The Son of God spent years in a small season, and the Church remembers those years precisely by calling them hidden, not lost. There is one more important Catholic note. The hidden life of Jesus is connected to the hidden presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. In Nazareth, divinity is hidden under ordinary human life. In the Eucharist, Catholics believe Christ is truly present under the appearances of bread and wine. The pattern is not identical, but the spiritual instinct is related. God hides himself in humility. God comes near under forms that can be overlooked. God asks for faith, not spectacle. This is why Catholic worship can train people to see the hidden years differently. The most important thing in the room may not look impressive. The holiest presence may be quiet. The deepest reality may be veiled. Nazareth is a long lesson in that kind of seeing. It prepares us to understand a God who does not force recognition. Jesus could have made his identity undeniable from childhood. He could have lived in permanent visible glory. He could have overwhelmed every village, every teacher, every ruler. But he did not. He accepted hiddenness. He accepted growth. He accepted the ordinary. He accepted being known as Mary's son, Joseph's son, the carpenter, the man from Nazareth. That acceptance is not a lack of power. It is the shape of divine love. Love does not always dominate. Love can wait. Love can serve. Love can become small. Love can enter a home and remain there quietly for years. The mystery of the lost years is not that Jesus vanished from history. It is that God spent most of his human life where history rarely looks. That is the entire Catholic angle in one sentence. History looks for kings, battles, declarations, journeys, controversies, public acts. Nazareth gives us a family, a trade, a mother pondering, a father guarding, and a child growing. The world asks, where is the missing spectacle? The gospel answers, look again at the hidden home, because every viewer has hidden years, years no one can summarize well, years of preparation, years of being misunderstood, years of doing necessary things that do not look impressive, years of caring for someone, years of grief, years of growing up, years of waiting for a door to open, years of wondering whether anything is happening at all. The Holy Family does not answer every historical curiosity about those years, but it changes the meaning of them. It says hidden does not mean absent. Hidden does not mean wasted. Hidden does not mean forgotten. Hidden does not mean unloved. In the life of Jesus, hidden years become holy years, and that means our hidden years can be offered too, not because they are easy, not because every question is answered, not because pain stops being pain, but because Christ has gone there before us. He has lived under a roof. He has obeyed, he has worked, he has waited, he has been known and yet not recognized. He has let the Father prepare the hour. And when the hour came, the hidden life did not disappear. It came with him. The patience of Nazareth was in his preaching. The humility of Nazareth was in his miracles. The obedience of Nazareth was in Gethsemane. The poverty of Nazareth was on the cross. The love of Nazareth was in the resurrection. Nothing was wasted. That is the final answer. The years between 12 and 30 are not a locked vault with a missing key. They are a quiet room. The church does not pretend to know every object inside it, but it knows who lived there. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, a hidden God, a pondering mother, a silent guardian, a small town, a long obedience. And in that room, before the crowds, before the miracles, before the cross, Christianity says something almost too large to notice. Ordinary life became holy. So the next time someone asks, what happened in the lost years of Jesus? The Catholic answer can begin with honesty. We do not know every detail, but we know enough. He was with his family. He was in Nazareth. He was hidden. And hidden in the Christian story does not mean missing. It means God was closer than anyone knew.